last week was this idea of looking at, because we don't work from techniques, people can sometimes get stuck, especially if you're training on your own or whatever. You get a point of contact and what do you do? So what we were looking at last week was this idea of from the point of contact I can do a number of things. I can maintain that point of contact and pivot around it. I can slide, I can roll, I can push, or I can just stick. So as that's moving around, I don't do anything, but I just stick to it. So if you ever get kind of caught out or think, I'm not sure what to do, then you can experiment with one of these movements and then see what comes of it. And as we said last time, of course, that applies to all your different points of contact throughout the body. Now, last time we were doing that working against grabs and stuff, which is quite easy work because the person basically gives you a lot to work with. We'll just look at it in relation to strikes as well. And what we'll start is with the stick. So if someone's just kind of prodding the stick towards you, when you get this point of contact, what are some of the different things you can do with it? So I can stick with it and deflect it. Basically, I'm pushing the stick. Now, the push can be like I'll push it back, or it can be just a deflection. I can kind of roll around that point of contact to do something. I can slide. I can pivot. So basically, what I want you to do is we'll just work against the wall as well, because we're working with point of contact, so that doesn't make any sense to break the point of contact at the moment. That is another option, of course. But generally, if you're working against the person, you want to maintain point of contact because it gives you all the information about where the person is just through the point of contact without having to process that visually. So just work here, and it's simple stuff. Just look at the different things you can do with that point of contact with the stick. Okay? Let's try. So, simple. So what you can apply to the stick, you apply to the arm. So now, wherever you get this point of contact on the arm, you can work the same kind of things. You're going to deflect, you're going to push, you're going to rotate around it, you're going to slide. And out of that, you should then start seeing your movements can develop. So from here, boom, you can control the arm. From here, you can hit. From here, take down. So this is what we mean by not working with technique so much. It's like seeing what you've got available at that point, and that's what you're going to work with. So again, we'll come back to this idea of this is your laboratory where you try things out. Now, see, it might be I'm going to try, I'm going to push this arm. So as that's coming in, I'm going to try and push it. But I learn if I do that, perhaps, if he just relaxes there, then the elbow continues coming in. So then I learn that maybe trying to push a punch is not the best thing to do. Instead, maybe I'll slide. Instead, maybe I'll deflect. Or whatever it is. But this is how your body learns to do it, rather than me showing you a technique for every single occasion. And then, as I said last time, the movement becomes your movement, and not my movement that I'll try and show you. So, just do the same work, but work against punches now, and just start moving yourself around a little bit as well. Nothing too intense at the moment. But this is about also learning to build your position. You see how Chris is positioning himself each time into the best place to do something back to me. We're not standing toe to toe and exchanging punches. Okay? Let's try. So you can work, of course, all sorts of exercises from this. guys are just doing here. So now the aim is to maintain that point of contact in some way and see if you can work your strikes through. When you do this work, from our perspective, it's important that you're moving around still, because we're working the feet as well. We're not doing it from kind of a fixed position. One of the reasons for this as well is our power generation doesn't depend on being in the stance, but that's, we'll get onto that later. So you can also work from here. Now, you see a lot of styles do this kind of work, but you can make it more interesting as well. You can work with 3 people. So now, there's also an element here of learning to, like if a strike comes in here, I can learn to deflect it into someone else. My movement here to defend against this strike feeds into my own attack. So you can start adding all that kind of work in as well. And you're still working from this idea of point of contact. Rotate, pivot, slide, push. So as long as you bear those things in mind, you'll always have something to do, try. Let's just try a little bit of that in groups of 3 or 4.
You passed that on? Yeah. Some pass. Do you remember that? Yeah. Wasn't me. Oh, we got out of the way.
Now, the interesting thing with this idea of point of contact is obviously we've got this point of contact, we've got this point of contact and all this kind of stuff. But if you think back to some of our basic drills, like the kind of zombie drill or the walking drills, where's my point of contact? My point of contact is here, as he enters my etheric field. So there's also a point of psychological contact, or verbal contact, or visual contact. And you can apply all those exact same things to that as well. So here, I'm kind of rotating around that point of contact. Here, I'm pushing back against that point of contact. Here, I'm kind of pivoting around that point of contact. So those principles apply across the board to all this stuff as well. This also then, when we're doing this work, is just this basic kind of walking work, and then you start placing the fists and all this kind of thing. This brings us into the striking work. And quite often people see this kind of thing going on, where it's 2-part work. One is with developing strikes, but also working on impact management, fear control and everything else. And people sometimes say, this kind of thing, it's all very well, this guy stood still and I'm hitting him, but it'll never work in sparring. And they're right. And they're wrong. If I do conventional sparring, I won't be able to do that kind of work. Because conventional sparring kind of generally dictates, the main thing is I've got to think about keeping my guard up. And we have this kind of exchange of techniques. Okay. So it's very difficult in that situation to apply that kind of work. But just off the top of my head, in the last 3 incidents I've been in, never once did I want to spar the person. Working the door with 3 guys kick off, I'm out with my wife somewhere and a bloke does something, and whatever. At no point did I feel like the need to spar. If a bloke's trying to hit you, you just hit him. Okay? So if you look at this work now from point of contact's point of view, that's it. There's my point of contact, and I'm hit. And look how I'm hitting. It's just the same. If we go back to this work, boom, 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 boom. Okay? Now, people then say, but you can't get any power in those strikes. I'm not going to hit Steve. It's not. But we know different. Because people are used to seeing, if you want to get power in a strike, you have to do a certain kind of technique or movement. We know from shifting the weight, from dropping the weight, from rotating the shoulder, from having heavy hands, placement and all the rest of it, that you can still get a good strike out of that. So that's what allows this method to work, is I react from my point of contact and I hit. And once I've hit there, I keep on hitting until I don't have to hit anymore. Or whatever else I need to do that's appropriate for the situation. I don't hit him and then come back to sparring again. Because why would I? You know, just giving him a chance. He's taking the initiative to do something to me, or I need to deal with that. Why would I give him the chance and then come away? Now, that's not to say that, of course, you have to test this out under speed and pressure and everything else. Of course you do. But you're still working on the central fact of, from wherever that point of contact is, whether it's a physical point of contact or whether it's a psychological point of contact, I move around it and I do my work. Okay? So let's just try. Just back to that basic drill. Just walking in and just place. Just place things. And it just gets you used again to moving and hitting on the move, and not having to be in the stance or anything else to move. Just work. And you'll see again, they're not big movements, because what happens if I do the big movement? I show him. I show him the movement. I'm not showing the movement, and then I hit him. You know, it's the difference between, you know, I'm going to shoot you and I'll just shut you. You know? So there's a lot of other things, of course, involved as well, your mindset and the breathing and everything else. But that's the basis. So if you think about it in those point of contact terms, there's the point of contact. That's where my body wants to move. So that's where I move. And as I move, good, nice. It's just deflected out of the shoulder. Nice movement. Yeah. Okay. Try. If I work, again, this idea of conventional sparring, then it's going to get, like, whoever the best sparrer is going to win it. So we're working this kind of stuff. But that's not our aim. If the guy comes in and punches me, I will win. Simple as that. So the idea is not to prolong the event, but to make it as quick as you can, for all sorts of reasons. An ironic thing again, because as you get better at taking hits, then my hits have less effect. So my hits have got to get better to get an effect and everything else. But that's all good. So off of that first movement, you need to hit there. Now the hits are also designed in such a way to try and break the person's structure, because obviously it's much easier to work with a person in this position than it is in this position. So the hits, sometimes they're not necessarily designed to knock someone out, or whatever it is, but sometimes to adjust the structure, and then I can work whatever else I need to work. So now, if we're doing sparring work, backwards and forwards, then we can do that as well. A little bit like we were doing with the sticking earlier, to get a sense of distance and all this kind of stuff. So you can work that as well. But that's different from how you want to use it. Boom. Okay? So, if you want to try that, quick attack, boom. 2-3 hits, boom, 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 and see how you get on with that. That's a nice punch.
It works nice because I'm short. Yeah, what's sliding in? Yeah. And that shoulder's up nicely as well to stop that. Yeah. So I think just having that slightly turned there helps.
Striking. Now the other question that comes up is the idea of compliance, and things only work on compliant students. All training I've seen is compliant, because if it isn't compliant, then it's real and it's not training. You know? Now there's obviously degrees of compliance, but in any class situation, you're not really trying to smash each other up, damage each other. You can put padding on and you can go faster without less risk of damage. You can work bare hand at certain speeds if you've got good control with less risk of damage. But there's also there's always that line over which, if I've got the opportunity in real life and it's a bad situation, I'm going to do it there as hard as I can. In training, I'm not, so I might give them a little bit of a tap. Okay? So there's that issue. But of course, we have to know how to deal with a real attack and something at speed. Now, because the other idea of compliance is the person lets you do whatever you need to do. So as we've said before, it's not uncommon to see the person throws the punch or does the movement and then but what we're doing here is obviously there's different ways of working and different drills to develop different things. But what you can do, if you're working slow like this, is fine, it's good. But if I move in here, if this person thinks he can react, then he should. So you see he's protecting himself. I've got another punch coming out there. Okay? Now this becomes a more useful kind of sparring because you're seeing what can develop. But the reality is, my first hit, I'm going to affect him in such a way that he shouldn't be able to do anything else. So if it comes in fast and I'll do something that's not effective, then he'll be able to carry on. Right? I'm not affecting him in any way at all. So he can so it's complying. You know? It's compliant, it's a training situation and everything else, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But you can see the effect of the hit physically. So if you can do that in a real situation, it's a good thing. Not all we need to do, but that's a good start. Okay? So make sure when you hit, and again that's a whole another big subject, which is why we come back to this work again to learn about placement and everything else. If when you hit, you can affect the person in that sense, then they don't have time to follow up with anything else as well. Alright? So just try some free play, whether you want to do it fast, slow, whatever. Try it out.
Sorry. It's hard.